tell your story, everyone. Wow. I have a lot of love now. Thank you guys for nice. Very cool. You know, I could tell like my full story, but then you leave her till the end of when my art is up here. Basically, you know, I sort of expected my life to not have any major difficulties, and then it did, and I didn't really know who I was anymore, and that was the scariest sense. So, you know, I got through by remembering what had made me feel alive my entire life. So I've grown up doing musical theater. I have an amazing, loving, supportive family. I was always into the arts, and I was also very type A driven, like I'm going to do this and this. And then, you know, my senior year of high school, one day in school, and the next minute, you know, in a coma. And so that coma period was probably the hardest on my parents, because I was in my own world, so, you know, I didn't know what was happening, but, you know, imagine the shock that comes when, you know, I'm slowly waking up and realizing that, like, I had no idea what's going on. As someone who was not in hospitals or anything, you know, I had, you know, certain terms I had never heard. I had a body I didn't, you know, recognize anymore. I didn't recognize anything, and, you know, I had been asleep for all these months, and people were telling me, oh, you look so much better now. You know, like, all this time had gone by, and I was still sort of like, wait a minute, like, I just got my college acceptance letter, so what's going on? And so there was no diagnosis or clinical plan. It was just, you know, my stomach exploded and I couldn't eat or drink now. And, you know, no one could tell me, you know, okay, in a month, in a year. It was just like, we don't know. So basically, I couldn't hold on to even like a promised date, because, you know, doctors didn't want me to make any promises. So I literally just had to take it 1 second at a time. You know, my dad would say, okay, we're going to do it like day to day, and month to month. And there were a lot of disappointments. I think I got through by just, yeah, I was describing some other people. You'll see my art, you know, a lot of people notice like a lot of positivity. And, you know, I had really depressed days, but I wouldn't even call it like, oh, I was just a positive person. I would say from like the day I woke up from a coma, it was almost like a sense of, you know, I'm talking in the one woman show I made for this, that, you know, I felt like a child being born all over again. Like I was discovering the world almost for the first time, and there was sort of like a delight in that, like things I had taken for granted before, like, oh, I was seeing the sun. And so that wasn't even like a put on thing. It was more like I was like amazed, like, wow, I'm here, and like, you know, things I was doing before, like, you know, now feel different. Like, there was even fascination that, you know, I have to learn to walk again. I didn't know why all my muscles had just like died. So I think what you'll see more in my paintings is more of like a childlike wonder, like sort of like a fascination with the world. Like, you know, a lot of my nature is personified. Like all my trees, I'm very not happy making trees that don't have faces on them. You know, because, you know, I felt like they were the one thing that was constant. Like nature was still here, my family was still here, and I didn't feel alive anymore. So like I sort of tried to look from the outside in, and so I mean, there's no clear-cut way to say how I got into art. Like I wasn't an artist before this, but you know, my family and my mother, you know, tried like just everything we could, because, you know, there was no medicine. You know, a therapist I went to see said to my mom, you know, listen, I'm not going to talk to her. She can't eat or drink. She's miserable. Like, I'm not going to ask her to talk about emotions. yeah, that sucks for her. So we were really on our own trying to figure out what to do. So I sort of discovered painting just as some kind of outlet to express things, you know. I discovered a lot in the hospital. I was telling people a lot of the layers, like toilet paper from Yale. I think it was also helpful that I didn't have any formal training or anything because it was sort of liberating. I just painted whatever I needed. And my painting sort of gave me hope. Like that painting that I eventually want to make prints of with my story on the back that like I can share with people because that was I had 27 surgeries, but it wasn't like, oh, I had all these surgeries and then I can eat and then I'm fine. You know, it was like I would have like, I think it was my 13th surgery that I could finally eat, but then, you know, I got fistulas and wounds open and all that stuff. So we were actually in Yale for 3 months in 2010. I had to be air vaxxed from California because my wound just literally just like burst open. So we ended up being there for like 3 months. And again, I was already hooked up, but now I couldn't eat or drink then. So my mom started bringing like canvases and whatever she got at micro there. And I remember painting that actually. And it was like, that was such a miserable time. And like, I just look at that and like, now it's just like joyous, but like, it didn't even feel joyous. It was more of like a desperate, like, okay, I'm here, I'm alive, like a recognition. So I'd say my paintings are more about like, you know, gratitude and and just that. A lot of my stuff has like lightning bolts and tears and broken hearts because there is that kind of sadness. But it's almost like a satisfaction. I don't know if you know what I'm talking about, but it's like, I'm happy because I at least know what I'm feeling. Like, I'm happy that I can feel my sadness. You know, it feels like me. I feel like a person. And so I think, you know, that really helped me find my identity again. So, you know, that's why my big thing is, you know, with no game plan, you know, I use creativity to heal. Like, I think if you can tune into your passion, you can get through anything. And that's not like just an idyllic thing. Like, it wasn't very graceful or anything, but like, I made it through. Like, I remember pacing through Stop and Shop, crying to my mom that I'll never be able to eat again, you know. But, you know, it was a way to hold on without just relying on just like these vague affirmations that I pull from the sky. You know, I was my own best friend through that. And yeah, that eventually, like, I made a one-woman show on it based on like the journaling I had done, and to, you know, wrap this up, basically, it was April 25th, 2005 that my stomach originally exploded. So it's been 10 years, which is crazy. I still feel, in a sense, like I am 18. I think I graduated about like 22 right now. So I'm getting there. I'm getting weird help because I have to act like a grown-up now. But you know, doing my show, my one-woman show, and my first art show in 2011, that was the first time I really shared what I'd been through to people in like a presentable form, not just like being the girl that lives in Westport with like the IVs and the neck bag, which I feel like everyone knew me as. So like, you know, even hearing feedback today from like something like I sort of take for granted that like naturally I'm a creative person, so I use that to anchor myself. You know, hearing how like it inspires other people. For me, at the end of the day, or at the end of like a decade, I'm like, look, wow, like that, like being a performer and doing what I love, and being an artist and getting to do that is like a really cool feeling. But it's the even better feeling, you know, the other half of art is the reception, you know, and knowing that it touches people. You know, art in a vacuum is just all my canvases on the floor in my house gathering dust, which I have a ton of. So that's why I'm so grateful, Laura, that like I'm able to have this up. Because now that's gotten me on like a social media kick. I just started a blog and I'm hearing like feedback from all my cyberspace friends saying, wow, your art really inspires me. And for me that's so cool because it makes like what I went through I don't like wasting time. And it makes it feel like it was like a purposeful thing. So I talk about this in my show that it's really easy for anyone to be like, oh, why me? Why does this have to happen? But I think for the first like 5 or 8 years, we were all thinking, why did this have to happen? I still have like bags on me and wounds open that I don't know if they'll heal. I had terrible surgery in November 2012 that still we're trying to figure out. When I think of all this stuff and it's not just me now, it's a ripple effect. It's affecting you guys, it's affecting who will tell, my stuff on the internet will affect people in cyberspace. One little or 2 little medical guys I have to deal with now seem like a very minuscule thing. Like one of my favorite quotes is from Viktor Frankl, who's a Holocaust survivor who says a quote, but he's basically saying suffering is relevant. And I don't think that's like a martyr thing to say. I think it really is like how I'm able to handle what I went through is just like proportionate to someone who is less able to handle something to what happens to them. That doesn't make me like stronger, but what's important is that I can use that strength to help other people get through their struggles, even if they are not as dramatic. So I'm talking a lot. I talk a lot. That's all. If you have any questions, I'm an open book. When I wrote a one-woman show and my work with you guys. No, not you.
And can you tell us about, because you created a lot of things besides art. Can you tell us about chocolate?
Oh, right. Okay. So I don't think, has anyone ever gone through yours without eating? So one thing that people don't understand, and I talk about this in my one-woman show, who is directed by this little guy here, who was my musical theater director and director since I was 13. That's another story in itself. So when I couldn't eat, I actually immediately got really obsessed with food. Like I wanted to play with it, I wanted to think about it all the time. I would make doctors come into the hospital and like drink their water bottles in front of me. And like people think it's torture, and I guess intellectually it feels like that. But like you become obsessed with what you don't have. So like I wanted some excuse to be able to go to Stop and Shop and like play with food. So I started a chocolate business. And I never really had a sweet tooth, so it wouldn't really tempt me much anyway, but I still got to go to Stop and Shop. And I would make these little, like my art, like I would paint these little cookies with inspirational quotes on them. And I had this like legit chocolate business for a while. And then I could eat, and then I didn't care about it anymore.
It served its purpose.
Yeah, it served its purpose. And then I guess the art came and that stuff. And then, so now I feel like this is like the final, or not final, but like the culmination of everything where like I went through it, I found myself through art, which is a big deal, and now I can like sort of pay it forward. So doing this is just like showing my art, it means a lot. Just like I was doing musical theater all my life, and the most crushing thing when I woke up from the coma is I couldn't walk, I couldn't sing, I had a trach. I was like, am I ever gonna be able to like dance again or do a show? But I'm still wanting to do musical theater, but the most important thing is doing my own show and sharing my own story. And having a stage to myself. No, not really. But being able to, be in New York, like getting reviewed on what I've been through, and that's a scary thing, to put myself out there like that. But I see it's worth it just in how it, affects people. So I'll stop. I talk a lot. So I know to stop. But so if anyone has any questions. Go to my website, sign up for my newsletter, all that thing. I was excited about that. I didn't do that. Turn your one-woman show into a
two-woman show, but and this will be a little
Is this
bit,
your sister?
a little bit interactive. But this is what I've done. When did you hang your work? A month ago? 3
Yeah, about a month ago.
So there's not a day that goes by that I don't do this to Amy's work. I'm constantly straightening it and making sure, because and her fiance Brandon had his, and her parents and her brother, everybody was here. And
Well, yeah,
it was
creativity and support. And
it was an amazing process because I never met her, and I had spied a little. I googled her, and I really, and she found me. No, but she found me. So I wasn't inspired by her story first and reached out to her. She found me, but you know, she was fairly intense from the beginning, and I'm like, okay, who is this chick? Because these guys know me a long time, a lot of you know me, and I'm pretty intense myself. You know? So I'm like, all right, she has this intensity about her. And so I googled her and I found your story, and I was like, I still, even though I knew a little bit about you, was not prepared for the force that you are when you came. And not only was it the force and the entourage, it was her art that came. And I got here late as usual because you guys know that about me too. But the art was everywhere. Where you guys are, it was literally covering every space. The stuff that you see on the walls was not all of it. There was a lot more. And they're all like going, okay, where do you want it? What do you want to do with it? And I'm like, okay, hold on. We gotta like start by color. We gotta group it. We gotta arrange it. And it was this process.
I'm already doing amazing job.
Well, I'm rather OCD, but the art found its place. The art found its space. She, as much space as we filled, wanted more. She's like, can we put it up here? Can we put it up here? And I'm like, all right, I really want this to be easily interpreted. You know, if we get too much, you're not going to really be able to view it. And we wanted it to resonate. This piece, she's made a greeting card out of, which we have for sale. They're $2 each. But you should tell that story, especially there's a couple of other doctors here. Was that hanging in the hall, did you tell me?
Yeah, so you know, a few of the, whatever it looks like it's for the right holiday, yeah. But you know, I put that painting outside my unit, and all the nurses, I started painting every morning. So soon it was like a ritual where I paint and then I put it outside my window, and the nurses would start walking their patients around and just see like what I had done today. And it was like a cool thing I could just, you know, do in the hospital to just like inspire people.
And I told her I think it should be a print that she could maybe, you know, sell to hospitals, because it really is an amazing expression. I know it's one of your favorites. It's definitely one of my favorites. But you know, this girl, this shortest girl with her arms outstretched, and it is a tree, and it's life, and it's affirmative, but the teardrops, you know, there is that sort of sadness, but it's not sad. And I had no idea until we started grouping the collection and looking at the details.
Like how I felt like when, it was like crying out of gratitude. It's really how I felt for like the first few months out of the program.
But until we started really carefully grouping it, I hadn't noticed that, you know, how many have the teardrops, or how many have the hearts, or how many have these certain messages that are repetitive. And obviously it's your story coming out, and they're so different, and they're all expressive, and the framing's different, and it really was a joy for me. And I told your parents, your energy stayed with me, like palpably stayed with me. In fact, my kids, my husband, they were like, okay, Mom, we heard about the girl. But it was something that, like, I absorbed you know, and I think all of the customers that come in, they might not know it, they might not even pay attention to it, but your energy is here every day, and I love that. And I just love that you found us, and I really do want them to understand your expression, because to me, it's so explosive. I mean, and the whole thing started, like you said, with an explosion, and now you have this explosive art that just wants to jump off the wall.
What a poet you are.
I don't know about that, but I really am grateful.
Well, thank you so much.
I don't know if anybody's questions. I just wanted you guys to, know a little bit more about our little journey, because it's been really fun for me.
Like, those are the stories that I love. Like, it's just so, like, also because, like, Brandon was like, I met like online after all this, and I never had a boyfriend in my life or anything like that. But like for basically 10 years, like I was very socially isolated. So I was coming out of high school and like having no social exposure. So I had no stimulus, and to get to that kind of routine, I would just lock myself in my room all day. like journal 30 pages and like hand my mom my journal under the door at the end of the day, and she would just read it and like write notes like her teacher doing grade. So like this for me, this is like stimulus overload for me, like which is awesome. So yay, people.
Where is that?
That's my brother Adam.
Where is that for sale though? Where is
Oh, the card?
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I have two. I have a basket.
Didn't you bring them?
Oh, she's got more in here, but I have them in a basket up front as well. And she's got them in here. So these are the greeting cards. They're just blank, cards.
But I'm guaranteed that eventually, if I set a new date, that we're getting this stuff on my website that I'm going to sell once everything gets that. So exciting stuff. So yay! Oh, thank you, guys.
I mean something.
Everybody's looking for wine or soda or cheese or crackers.